Thank you for staying tuned to Newsmaker Live with Laura. In studio with me are Sergeant Siobhan Matthew and Superintendent George Nicholas. And we've been talking about crime and crime management in St. Lucia. The question was posed, is crime really on the increase? And in the first segment with our guest, Superintendent Nicholas was giving us some statistics. And it may be surprising to note that crime generally hasn't really been on an increase. We've had some increases and we've had some lows. We've had some decreases as well. And we've also been talking about community policing and how we can marry community policing and traditional acts of policing to keep crime on a lower level in St. Lucia. Now, before we went on break, we spoke about a number of things, but one of the things that really came to my mind is some of the areas where we have had increases. For instance, we have had an increase in gender-based crimes, right? So we've had a number of increases where it comes to sexual offenses against women. But to my mind, and I've been tracking this down since April, we've had some seriously barbaric crimes. The slashings and the maimings, the machete attacks. Why are our people, do you think, so angry? These crimes to me screams of anger. You know, it's one thing to pull out a gun and to shoot somebody, but another thing to actually get into close contact with that person and to slash that person, to get that person's blood on you. Have we seen an increase in those kinds of crimes?
Well, there's been an increase in the use of machete and cutlass and also knives, but we would use those weapons when they have no choice of probably getting a firearm. Okay, so the next best thing to a firearm or a weapon is a cutlass.
Have we seen a decrease in the number of illegal firearms? Because I remember a few years ago, you've had amnesties where persons are bringing in their firearms. Have we seen a decrease in the number of, or do we know? Do we have those statistics in terms of illegal firearms? Is that why we're seeing use of other types of weaponry?
Well, our statistics is showing a decrease in the number of firearm-related offenses, and that would also include possession of a lawful firearm.
And also possession of the ammunition.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know for sure. In terms of detecting, and so I want to go a little bit away from what we've been discussing earlier. In terms of detecting, recently we've been having a lot of in the media with regard to crime scenes. Let's talk a little bit more about that. And Sergeant Matthew here is a detective, so I'm going to be posing a lot of those questions to you. Tell us a little bit more about crime scenes and how do you go about detecting, because you have had an increase in the detection rate this year so far.
Okay, a crime scene. Well, we would know that a crime scene is an area where something has happened or offense has happened, and you could possibly pick up evidence as it relates to that offense. Now, a crime scene tells a story. It tells you what happened, okay? And at the crime scene, we could make and break our case, because there is a lot of stuff that we could pick up at the crime scene that would help us solve our cases. A lot of those items would possibly be blood, hair, we have saliva, clothing, even the weapon that was used during the commission of the offense. So you see that a crime scene is very important when it comes to solving or detecting the cases. A good crime scene, if it's processed properly, could help you well when it comes to solving your case.
Wonderful. So in the past, we've had a murder happens, takes place, and before police officers are there, the media is there. Talk to us a little bit about how the crime scenes are contaminated. What can we do as laypersons, as media? What can we do to protect those crime scenes from contamination?
when a crime happens, what we urge in St. Lucians to do is to stay away as much as you can from that crime scene, because contamination is a big issue for us right now. Okay, the way you could avoid contamination at the crime scene is that you stay away from where the incident took place.
But we all want the scoop.
Yes, I know we all want the scoop, but we have to think of the bigger picture. We have to think that somebody is a victim. That could have been your family, right? Somebody's family is affected. So the same way you wouldn't want somebody to encroach on a crime scene where your family member got affected, you wouldn't want it you wouldn't want to do it to them. So that's why we're urging them not to encroach on the crime scene, because contamination of the crime scene could make it a little difficult for us to solve our cases.
Now, let's pause here for a minute, because something just popped in my head. Oftentimes, these crimes happen, and they call the media. People who are aware, okay, this crime they call the media, and the media gets there before the police officers, which says to me that the media was called first before. Going back again to community policing, if it is that this is a thrust that you want to go into, the police force wants to go into, it would say that then the communities would call, or people within the community would call the police first before they call the media. Right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right. And so that would help further with your detection rate and with solving crimes. Do we have any cold cases in St. Lucia?
I wouldn't say we have any cold cases in St. Lucia. We have cases that information is not forthcoming as we'd want to. So priority is given to other cases where that are more current, or where information is forthcoming. But I will not say that there are any cold cases.
But we have cases like Valerie Lord, for instance, that has never been solved. We have cases with, for instance, Shaka. Where is Shaka?
Okay, all right.
Mary Ratcliffe, she lost her life. We don't know anything. That, to my mind, is a cold case.
I wouldn't say it's a cold case. It's a case that is still pending.
So you're still investigating those cases?
It is not closed. It is not closed.
But are you still
so we'll not refer to it as a cold case.
Okay, so you're saying you only refer it to a cold case if you said, okay, it's unsolved and we just chuck it in some cold room somewhere and we don't visit it. No, but seriously though, I know resources are stretched, but do you often go back to these cases and review the case file and try to see, okay, maybe something may pop up? And
okay, from my experience, what I've seen and what I've known, there are some cases that when information comes in, we go back and then we reopen the cases and we continue the investigation. You see, a matter is not just solved by just saying, somebody can over the phone and say, hey, John Brown committed the offense, go and arrest him. We need witness statements. You know, we need evidence. Okay, we probably need testing from the lab, right? We need different.
Speaking of the lab,
different kind of testing. So you see.
Speaking of the lab, is the lab reopened?
It's not reopened as we speak. But from what I know, there are discussions taking place with a view to reopen the lab in the short order, because it is part of our tool, more or less, that we urgently need in order to help us put a dent in crime.
I'm so disappointed. Honestly, I wouldn't lie to you. I mean, it hurts my heart to know that we have this lab. It is supposedly fully equipped, is it?
It is equipped to a very large extent.
An equipped lab without the personnel to use the equipment, to my mind, is a white elephant. It's just there.
I'll not say that, because we have gotten results from the lab that has aided us in solving cases.
That's prior to it being closed.
Yes.
Prior to the so therefore it's a key tool that should be reopened as soon as possible.
Yeah, it is a key tool, because most times when persons go to court for drug offenses, if those persons plead not guilty, the drugs will have to be sent to the lab to get tested. Alright?
And
So
we've had cases where
when it comes back,
drugs have gone in and come out as soap powder.
well,
And that's another issue.
that's yes, that's for another issue. But you see, the lab is a key component to aid us in investigation. I could tell you that at the lab there are hard-working individuals. There are persons who work hard at the lab, just like in the police force, in the crime management unit. There are persons who work hard to see that cases get solved.
So there was an investigation into the lab that has been concluded.
As far as I know, it is still ongoing.
It is still ongoing. So you really don't know when that lab is going to be open. In the meantime, what do you do with the evidence collected at crime scenes? I mean, you've been doing a fantastic job educating the public as to how to treat a crime scene.
Yeah.
You know, we have
The bookmarks.
your bookmarks. I think that was a great initiative. I think every solution ought to have one of those, and we need to read it, and we need to understand it, and we need to appreciate the information contained within this bookmark.
Yeah.
But after we have done what you've asked us to do, and after we've stayed away and you've caught on to the area, and we've not contaminated the crime scene, and you've gathered all of that evidence, what happens?
Well, as we speak, we do some testing overseas, but that, as you know, would require...
That comes at a
some-
cost,
at a
doesn't
cost,
it?
Yes.
Yeah. Everything
At a
comes-
more exorbitant cost than if we were to test it and deal with it here in St. Lucia.
Well, you know,
Stretching your resources even
you know,
further.
fighting crime is very expensive, and if we want to fight crime, we will have to spend the money. Because
Do you get that support? Does all the evidence that you collect get sent away for testing?
Well, all is not required to be sent away.
for testing, yeah.
So,
So
those
there's evidence that you can
that can
manipulate
be
here.
analyzed
Essentially,
locally,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
'Cause
Even
evidence-
with the lab being closed.
Yes, for
Yeah.
example, a fingerprint you don't necessarily need in the lab.
Exactly,
We have what you call an IFI system, an automatic
The what
fin-
system?
An IFI system.
Okay, explain that to me.
It's a system where you put in the prints, and then if you lift a print from a scene, you put it into the machine, it's a system, and it runs through it to see where you can
It
get a
gets a
match.
match.
I like what the FBI and them use, like the code is.
Yes.
Like what you see on TV.
Not what you see on TV, but not in I would say in so much of a short time.
Right, of course. I
Because-
mean, we know
yes.
we only have 1 hour
because-
to solve the crime
No, because,
on
because,
TV.
because solutions would tell you that they see it on TV where they lift a
Oh.
fingerprint in 5 minutes, or they get drug testing done in 5 minutes. That cannot be done in
You
in
get
1
that?
hour.
You get that?
Yeah, a lot of times persons call us and they tell us, but officer, you all got the whatever last week. Why we cannot get the results yet?
And this
I
things
saw
at
on
times
I saw on TV that on CSI we keep on telling them that
CSI, the crime has to be solved in 1 hour.
yeah,
Yes, yes,
it's a TV program.
Mm-hmm.
It's not real life. It's not real life. Okay, you see, for example, like toxicology testing, persons to check the amount of alcohol somebody has in their blood. On TV, you will see it's done in less than 5 minutes.
You mean the breathalyzer when you that's not instantaneous?
No, well, I'm not sure about the breathalyzer, but I know about the toxicology. It doesn't happen in 1 hour.
Right.
Yes,
And so you are hampered by that. And so when you have community policing working properly, and you have the public and the media generally obeying the crime scene rules,
to an extent.
we were just saying, okay, this is euphoria. This is, in a perfect world,
Yeah.
right? We've gotten information through the community network. A crime has happened and the crime scene was protected.
Yeah.
You have evidence and you're taking it to court.
You have your witness statements.
You have your witness statements and whatnot. You've taken it to court. Are there any challenges after you've taken it to that level?
To court.
Yes.
With the cases.
Yes.
Well, one of the challenges we have is that the persons who assisted us in the investigation by giving the statements, when it gets to court, they do not show up for court. For some reason, it either somebody paid them not to come to court, or for some reason they get cold feet.
Okay. I'm going to put you on the spot. And I'm going, if I'm out of bounds, you tell me, because I'm just a regular layperson and I obviously don't know all about the law and I don't know all about policing, so you're here to guide me. Our latest homicide, right? I spoke about her in my preamble, Sophia Didier. I understand that you have somebody in custody, or assisting, let me use the right terminology, assisting the police.
Investigation.
Yes. Now, as far as I heard, that person assisting you was almost like the same day. Crime happened and within hours you've got somebody assisting you. Was that as a result of community policing?
But to a very large extent, the swift response of the police contributed. Also, it was a response to information received. But that is not a case that we can go too much into because it is still very current, still under investigation. The person has not been charged as yet. But we must commend the members of the public who provided the assistance to the police that contributed towards we've been where we are with that case.
I'll tell you something. Oftentimes I'm really PO'd when I hear crimes have been committed. They know who has committed the crime. Charges have been proffered. They go to court and then the person is out on bail.
Okay.
The person is out on bail. The person commits another offense. The person is hauled before the courts again, and the person is sent off on bail, mixed bail again. That's two. The person is now free again to go and commit more crimes. And the crimes that these individuals are committing gets more and more heinous. How does that affect you guys, the policing that you do? And we've heard well, we haven't heard so much in the last maybe 3 weeks, but prior to that we heard a lot from your welfare office talking about the low morale of the police force and what. How does that affect your ability to do your work and how you interface with the public?
Okay, being a detective, being an investigator, sometimes, well, most times we work day and night in solving cases, and what hurts us the most is when we go out there and we put our all in solving the cases. For instance, somebody who's wanted for firearm offenses, you go to his home, you recover a firearm, you charge him for the offense of possession of firearm, you take him to court, and the magistrate just gives that person a slap on the wrist. Sometimes the person pleads guilty and you fine him $2,000 for possession of a firearm. You know a firearm is a deadly weapon.
Isn't there a specific rule or in the criminal code where it comes to firearms?
Yes, it says 7 years or $15,000.
And yet still magistrates or judges will allow.
That's my point. So you find police officers will tell you, me, I'm not killing myself to go and do anything, because when you take those persons to court, all they get is a slap on the wrist. You see, a lot of persons tend to blame the police for those things, but it's not us. What we do is put the matter before the court. We cannot control what happened in the court. All we could do is do our best to bring out our evidence, give our evidence properly, okay, to see if we could possibly get conviction.
Now, these things are already enshrined in our constitution, in our laws. And last week we were all about constitution reform and debating all of that. But these are things that are already there, and we're not complying. I'm asking myself, does the constitution really needs reform?
I believe the other government bodies, or probably say the judicial system, should begin to work hand in hand with the police, because you know crime is everybody's business. It's not just the police officers that have to go out there and fight the crime. You understand? Crime is the persons in the community. Crime is our business. The magistrates, the judges, you know, we have to come in like as one, so we could put a reduction in crime. We cannot end crime. We could possibly reduce it, okay? But it's not left to the police alone, because the police cannot be everywhere. Okay? It's heartbreaking when you're a police officer and you push in work, and when you go to court, it's like the magistrates and them is like, you know, they not. I mean, come on, work with us, you know.
But if I may add, the magistrates in passing sentence, they have a discretion.
Yeah.
And that discretion would vary from one magistrate to the next.
Yeah, but shouldn't that be using the guidelines that are provided? Because that's to me, when you say, okay, for an offense of a firearm, it's $15,000 or 7 years, mandatory. That's mandatory.
It's there
in prison. and you're using your discretion should be whether it is 10 years or 7 years, but not below 7 years, and certainly not below $15,000, because I know, I mean, there was this case where this young man had shot at 3 people, hurt 3 people, send them to the hospital. They're hurt, they have medical bills, and he was bailed at $5,000 and asked to remain away from a certain geographical area. That was it.
Yeah,
now, if it were my son, my husband, my child that was hurt, I mean, can you understand now why, for instance, Soufriere, where and we have to touch on this, where this mental patient or this mental person was gunned down, and then there was this mini revolt. And so you can well understand why those things would happen, because people are frustrated. You know, people are frustrated where there is a guideline, and oh well, the magistrate can use their discretion, but the discretion is not allowed for within the law. Now let's go back to Soufriere. Police brutality and police killings, and I know we're talking community policing. Can a case like what happened in Soufriere in the past few weeks derail what you're trying to do with community policing?
Obviously, it's going to impact us negatively.
Yeah.
It is something that we're trying to avoid at all costs. But in trying to execute your duties in terms of protection of life and property, you have a responsibility to protect your own self. And if the police finds himself against a wall, he have to take certain preemptive measures to sort of overcome the threat that he is faced with.
But I understand that, and I don't think anybody, because you come from our communities, and you come from our community. Sir, I'm sorry guys, I'm getting a little feedback in my ear, so it's just distracting me a little bit. I can understand where you're coming from. You come from our communities and you have to protect yourself, and if somebody's coming at you. But in the case of Soufriere, from what I understand, this man was going about his own business and stopped. Now with anything, you know, he's a little mental unstable, and you're coming at him and he's going about his own business. A normal person would fret what's going on, but when you have somebody who's already mentally unstable, what I mean,
really and truly, we have to find a formula that works for us as it relates to handling persons with mental challenges. Far too often these incidents result in fatalities. It is something that we would hope would never happen. But people can rest assured that we will conduct an impartial investigation into these matters. The
officers involved, are they still on the job?
The investigation is still ongoing. We're trying as much as possible for it to be as impartial as possible. And I said in another forum, the chips will fall where they may. The Royal Central Police Force is one of the organizations that would take the members to task when they found wanting. We have had several incidences where our police officers have been arrested and hauled before the court.
This is the first one, that was the first police killing for the year.
It is the first for the year.
For that same period last year, have we seen a comparable number of
I think last year, by this time, we had about 3.
You had 3. So you're actually seeing some decrease in that area, and that's a good thing. We're due for a break. When we come back, the conversation will be open to you, St. Lucia. You can join in our conversation. See you on the other side of the break.